Hey team, Marty from Seeking Focus. Today Evan's not here. However, I've been actually a guest on a podcast as well, and the podcast is called Your Story Studios. I've been chatting with Nathan. He's the host of that show, and in this episode we talk about my gear.
Welcome to Seeking Focus, a podcast that provides photographers and videographers with a place to critically compare technology, share ideas, and enhance their skills.
Hi, and welcome to the Your Story Studios podcast, a podcast where we talk about all things content creation. And today on the show, I'm joined by Marty, and today we are talking about your gear. Marty, tell me about your camera gear.
How much time do you have?
We've got about 20 to 30 minutes.
No, we need about a couple of hours, I'd say. No, I'm joking. I'm a primarily a Sony shooter. So
Why?
I've got my... Why? Because I wear glasses and good, reliable focus. That's what I need. But I used to be Canon. I used to fully Canon, everything Canon. And then I think a couple of years ago, Canon just wasn't cutting it with the focus, with dynamic ranges and a few other things. And
What camera models were you using?
at that time, I was just on the Mark III, so 5D Mark III. And I was just sort of starting into that sort of video component, and I had some budget to get something better. And Canon at that time, yes, they had a couple of, C100, C200, C300 cameras. But
the C300 was industry standard a few years ago.
Yeah,
Canon was, the industry standard. And it seems today,
Sony's, that's right. And look, I think, I seriously think it's due to that big factor of autofocus. I mean, there is my FX6, for instance, I can, shoot at 85 1.4 and still have pin sharp focus on my subject, even though they move forward or backwards.
If you have the settings set right.
Yeah, that's another thing too. Yeah.
Use it right.
But you know what? Back then, I think that sort of focus was a big deal. So anyway, I'm sort of digressing. But FX6. So Sony FX6 is my primary A-cam. Then I've got my A7S III, which is my gimbal work.
That's the same as me. Yep.
Yeah, and then I've got my A7 IV, which is primarily a bit of both. So it's a bit of a hybrid between sort of photography and video, which I think is a fantastic camera because I took that camera to Antarctica with me a couple of years ago.
And it didn't overheat?
It was amazing. The images that I got from Antarctica were just phenomenal, you know what I mean? And on that trip, I brought my 70-200 with a 2x extender and my 24-70 2.8 as well, G-Master lenses. So I think, that sort of setup, it almost gets to a point where it covers all the bits and pieces that you need, you know what I mean? Then I've got a couple of 360 cameras as well. So I've got Insta360s, RS1, I've got R2 or 3, I can't remember now. A couple of sliders, I've got a time-lapse, as I mentioned in the last episode, I started off with a lot of time-lapse work. So I've got my slider with my time-lapse motion rig, which is a Emotimo TB3, which is fairly old now, but it's still a fantastic little unit. And then I've got a lot of drones as well. A lot of my work comes from drones these days, and I work with a fair bit of agencies that sort of refer me because being a certified operator, I have to be able to, obviously, if you kind of just bring one drone to a job and then something goes wrong, you kind of, you look bad, you know what I mean? So I've got multiple drones.
In case you crash one.
Yeah, it has happened once or twice. So look, I've got pretty much the whole DJI set. So starting from the sort of smallest to sub 250, which has got the Mini 3, DJI Mini 3. Then I've got the Mavic 3. They were in the very first ones. Recently I bought a Mavic 4. I've got an Inspire 3 as well. So Inspire is one of the workhorses for me as well in a video perspective. It's fantastic drone, yet it costs so much money, but there's a lot more functionalities on the Mavic 3s and 4s, with 360s and other things as well. I know why they did it that way, because the footage is just phenomenal from the Inspire 3. And then I've got my thermal drones, which is Matrice M30T. And that Matrice does a lot of, do a lot of inspections. So I would say a lot, but it's one of my inspection drones. So in the past, I did a job for, I was subcontracting for another company, but we had to search a telco tower, and they had a couple of nests, like bird's nest, and the bird's nest actually affect the performance of the tower. So we had to sort of go up and see where those bird nests are, and then I had to send that footage off to them, and then they basically sent people to get rid of those nests. Oh yeah, and I've got about 10 FPV drones, which sort of they range from the sort of very small sub 250 as well to fairly large 7-inch that weigh just over 2 kilos. All the drone component you still have to have certifications for, because you're doing it commercially. So if you make money out of it, you kind of need to make sure that you're certified. But from the FPV drone, so FPV drone it's a first-person view drone where you fly in through the goggles, so you're seeing what the drone sees, and you kind of get that sort of flying bird effect where you can kind of get into sort of really tight spaces and go through shelves, and and I've did a job for a fairly big brand as well in Australia where I flew through a little, so this was like we're doing inside the store, a retail store fly around, and then I flew through a like a cabinet almost through to the other side where a normal camera couldn't do that, which is fantastic. So from that perspective, the FPV drones, it's like a sub 250, so you've got little 3 senior whoops that I've got. So the 3 senior whoops can carry a GoPro camera, and they've got propeller guards as well, so they're safe to fly around people. And then you've got freestyle drones where you sort of do tricks and other things. If you're not used to it, they can get you sort of, get a bit sick as well. So vertigo kind of effect, you have to get kind of used to it. And then I've got my long range drones as well, which is the 7-inch that they can go out further, a couple of kilometers. Not that it's legal, but never actually done it, actually going out too far. But you can, yeah. So, and it's a really good sort of cruising drone where you sort of want to sort of fly over the sort of treetops and whatever else, and just to get that really cool bird flying effect, you know what I mean? So, I don't know. What else can I say?
Well, I'll ask a question. So you've mentioned that you've got lots of drones. Why would you pick using the Mini 3 over the Inspire 3? Is it really just coming down to budget, or is there a specific reason that a Mini 3 is something that you actually bothered to purchase?
Yeah. I think that's a great question because
for people that don't know, the Mini 3, it's very small and it's very, how would you describe it image quality wise?
You know what? It's fantastic. I love it. Look, the budget component is a little bit because there's some clients that I deal with, they want that 8K footage at 50 or 60 frames per second or even 75 frames per second, where Inspire 3 can do. And the Mini 3 essentially can't really do what the Inspire 3 can do. But for instance, when I was shooting the other day at a client's, so we did a factory shoot, and they just wanted to show off all the robotics that basically put bits and pieces together, and they just wanted to sort of float from top. So in a confined environment of, like a factory, for instance, where there's people working, whatever else, you don't want to have a big 4.5 kilo drone hanging over their heads, you know what I mean, to get amazing footage, where the Mini 3 came out fantastic, you know what I mean, because that drone is under 250 grams, and you're just slowly moving it, and you kind of just get all the details of the factory that are happening from the bird's eye view. Essentially, what that drone also does where Inspire 3 can't do is, for instance, a time lapse. They had a robot basically moving bits and pieces around and whatever else, and I just basically flew that drone up to a certain level and just did a time lapse of that, manufacturing sort of space.
What's the battery life?
Enough. I think it's about close to half an hour, which, you know what, like in half an hour, there's a fair bit of stuff happening, you know what I mean? And you can put a bigger battery on it as well that will essentially make it a little bit longer, where Inspire 3 battery life is sort of about 25 minutes, which is, kind of great, but not fantastic compared to like the Mavic 4, for instance. Just to answer your question quickly from that perspective, yes, there are certain parts where you need a small drone, and there are certain jobs that you need a big drone. You know what I mean? And I want to be able to have clients that can hire me for both different scenarios.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just mentioned the Mavic 4. Tell me about the Mavic 4.
Yeah, Mavic 4 is a fairly recent addition to my drone family. It's a drone that just sort of DJI just released, and it's great. It does really sort of give that extra edge with the 3 lenses. So we've got 28 mil. I've got a 60 or 70 mil. I can't even actually remember now. I think it's 67 or 70 mil zoom and then 167 zoom. All 3 cameras, unlike the previous version of Mavic, all 3 of those shoot in D-Log or D-Log M, and they're all usable. You know, on my old Mavic 3, I've got the wide-angle lens, which is great. You can use it pretty much for anything, and I've got some amazing images out of it. Yet the zoom lens on the Mavic 3, total rubbish. And you couldn't shoot in log. You couldn't do certain sort of components with it where you can do now with the Mavic 4. And I think, you know, the extra stability in the air, which is because it is a bigger unit essentially than Mavic 3, it handles the wind a lot better as well. Yet, I mean, Mavic 3 was great, don't get me wrong. I think they just improved that little bits and pieces. For me personally, I think that those 3 lenses is a big deal. It's got great AI in it as well, so where you can track you. So I basically put the controller down. I've got a little farm that I sort of, you know, play around with. It's my own property, and tracked myself, and I started running between the trees, and it was following me fine. You know what I mean? So there are a few faults with it, I think.
What are they?
Well, you know, it's I talked about them on my podcast as well, which is Seeking Focus. Main flaw, I think, with that sort of drone at the moment, which can be fixed in a lot of ways, is they haven't actually released the variable ND filters just yet. And that drone essentially is pretty useless without any ND filters, which, you know, I'm sure we fixed very shortly, and they released those. You know, I had to purchase just standard sort of ND filters for it. And it works fine. I mean, I'm just being picky at the moment.
You won't just crank the shutter?
Yeah, you can.
What kind of shutter speed do you normally like to have with your drone
I
footage?
try to do that sort of so I can get that flow motion, which is, you know, like, so in Australia, obviously we shoot 25 and 50 frames per second. So I'm trying to go over 100 frames, as in, you know, the shutter speed. With that ND filters, you sort of got to crank it up in order to be able to get that sort of
180 degree shutter work.
So you kind of, you know, there is few things that obviously, you know, but another thing I actually noticed about that drone, and a lot of people haven't actually mentioned about it, is with you fly obviously your Mavics and everything else as well, where you got your master shots, right? Your master shots, you can select the object on the map or on the photo, and then make the drone basically fly around it, take different sort of angles and everything else. It does do it, but only in 30 and 60 frames per second, not 25 or 50, where Europe, Australia, we all use.
Gotcha.
Where, you know what I mean? And that's so frustrating, because then you have to get the footage, and you essentially have to manipulate that footage to be able to not to get any jitters or, you know, any other sort of issues with it. So yes, it's great, but yeah, there is a few bits and pieces. And like I mentioned, I do my own podcast as well, so it's Seeking Focus, and we seek focus for different items. So we do gear reviews. Evan and I basically run this podcast, and I'm just about to release this episode on the Mavic 3 on all the things that are wrong with it, essentially. So
3 or 4?
Oh, sorry, 4. Yes. Yeah. So on the 4, there are things that are wrong with it and that need to be improved from my sort of, you know, it's my personal opinion, but I think a lot of people can relate to it. You know what I mean? So it's a great drone though. Yeah.
And the solutions, are they just firmware updates, or is there like some critical flaws?
There is a couple of critical flaws, I think. A lot of people purchase that drone as well for the gimbal to swing vertically. And
that social content.
Yeah, for that social content. And it's great. It does do it. The problem is only goes down 11 degrees. So you can't actually get a top-down view. And where my Mini 3 can do it, you know what I mean? And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm going to have to keep my Mini 3, because I can actually get those top-down views in a vertical mode, where the Mavic 4, yes, you can, but only 11 degrees down, you know what I mean? And it's great to have it, but I think at the end of the day, you need that flexibility, especially how much that drone costs. So they try to market this drone as a spin my world, where you can spin the camera 360, but you're only going to use that sort of shot once or twice. I think, I don't think it's a very much a client kind of, shot where, every single client you're going to do a shoot for in that drone, you're going to spin that camera 360 degrees on, all around.
So who would you say that the Mavic 4 is for?
I think it's still pretty much for any creator. I think the increased battery is a big deal. You're still not getting the 51 minutes that they obviously promote. I've noticed that the flight times are totally longer than the Mavic 3. Who that drone is for is pretty much people like me and you, essentially, where we can make money out of it, you know what I mean? And use it for our clients.
Because it's not a cheap drone.
No. So I've spent with the ND filters. So I purchased normal ND filters. So all up, it costed me $5,500 Australian. It's one of those things where when you make money out of it, you need to show the people the best what you can do. And I think with technology evolving so quickly, you need to keep up with it, you know what I mean? So I kind of set if I do a number of shoots, there's a percentage of that shoot I will dedicate to new gear to be able to purchase. And it seems to be working well, So the only problem is my studio is full of gear at the moment. So
Start selling
it's crazy. Yeah, I know, yeah. But it's constantly, you have to evolve, like recently I purchased a new Mac, M2 studio. And I mean, that was so much money as well. But I look at the longevity, long-term goal where I know if I purchase something really good and it's going to, number one, make my job easier, quicker, and last for a lot longer as well. You know what I mean? So I'm a firm believer of purchasing something good. And sometimes when you purchase that cheap stuff, yes, it might work, but sometimes it won't, you know what I mean? And you kind of got to really make sure that, I think you have to be able to purchase something that will last the distance.
Yeah. You just mentioned that you've just purchased an M2 Mac. I'm assuming that is for editing and not just for admin. Do you enjoy editing?
It's a tricky one because as much as I do enjoy editing, I've noticed it takes a lot of time and effort, and I can essentially use that time and effort to bring more business in. But
hire an editor.
Yeah, it's a funny one because I was actually considering that, but like I mentioned, it's sort of last episode. You have to be able to keep on getting that work to be able to pay the editor and sales and whatever else, So it's sort of, at the moment, I'm in a space where I'm happy where I am and the gear that I have, and the editing is sort of, it's something that you have to sort of do, and it's my style. So a lot of my clients that get me in to do their content, they enjoy my style of editing. And I think, it's one of those things where, yes, you can outsource, but you got to find someone reliable and someone that is actually it matches your own, And I mean, at the moment, I'm still editing on Final Cut. Yes, a lot of people probably say, oh my God, this guy's so old and whatever else. But I was considering, I did Premiere Pro for a while, and I've just noticed that in Final Cut, because I'm so used to that software, I can literally smash a video in less than an hour or two, a proper edit, schmick, and then get it done. Where Premiere Pro took me a little bit longer. And DaVinci Resolve will be fantastic for coloring and everything else. But
that's what they say.
Yeah, that's what they say. But, I haven't got to that sort of space just yet where, I think I'm too heavily involved with Final Cut. I've purchased a number of add-ons to Final Cut where I can track up subjects and I can do a lot of, floating wording and other things. Where
there's no subscription.
Yeah. So it's kind of, one-off payment. You kind of go, and I've been editing it on it for the last 10 plus years. And I'm just, I just don't have time or effort or, to be able to switch to DaVinci or to any other sort of platform. I mean, some people probably say, yeah, you're going a bit backwards or whatever else. But, anyway, yeah, I don't know. What do you edit on? I don't even know.
I edit on Premiere Pro, but I do have Final Cut Pro.
Oh, yeah.
I got a M1 Mac Mini back in 2020, I think, or 2021. And that was because, and I went from a PC back to Mac. So when I first started, when I went to uni, I got, I think it was like a G5 or something like that. It was spec'd out, like very expensive, and was going to last me a long time. And it lasted me probably like 10 years or so. But technology advances and all that.
That's exactly right.
And I ended up wanting to have a very powerful computer, but Mac at the time was quite expensive. So I had a housemate who built a PC for me, and that worked quite well. And because I was editing on Adobe, so Premiere, that went across both Mac and PC, which was great. And then I wanted to build an even more powerful PC a few years later. So I unlocked that achievement and I built my own PC. But there were a few things about it that I didn't really like. Like sometimes I'd go to turn the computer on and it just wouldn't turn on. And then I'd get on my phone and do a Google search and find out, oh, I have to take the computer apart, pull out the battery from the motherboard to try to refresh it, and then put it back in, and then put the computer back together and then turn it on. That fixed it. That's really annoying, especially when you got clients contacting you saying, hey, I need this change or something like that. So just those little things made me a little bit annoyed. And then I was kind of convinced to go back into the Apple ecosystem. So my wife has an iPhone and she has a shared photo galleries with her family and all that, which I was never a part of because I had Android phones and all that. So I did a complete 180 and I went right back to Mac back in, I think, 2020, 2021. And I've been pretty much Mac ever since. I've got an iPhone, I've got a watch, Apple Watch, I've got Apple TVs, I've got a whole bunch of Apple stuff. And why I like that is because it just works and it all works well together. I love airdropping. I love being able to be on my MacBook Pro M1, which I can just go copy and then paste onto my phone. Just all these little things that, look, I'm sure there's a workaround with Android and I'm sure it works sometimes. But yeah, I just find that Apple works well for me. And yeah, I edit on Mac and I don't really have much of an interest to edit on anything else. I am interested in getting possibly like a Mac Studio or something like that in the future. When I got my M1 MacBook Pro, I got it spec'd out to the max and I was like, this is going to last me forever, knowing that it's not going to last me forever. This was back in, I think, 2021. So a few years ago now. So it's starting to, it's an M1 and they're bringing out M4s and all that. Like, oh, wow. But for what I need it for right now, it does the job.
Yeah, and totally agree with you. I think, if you're in that sort of space of ecosystem of Apple, exactly the same thing. I've got my studio, I've got my MacBook Pro, and I've got, my iPhone, my iWatch, whatever,
Apple Watch, yeah.
Apple, so even with the FPV, so every time I sort of do an FPV job for a client, I've got my iPad in front of me and the iPad plugs into my goggles. So the client sees what I see through the drone. So essentially, the client will basically say, oh, can you fly through that? Or can you do this sort of move? So, the whole ecosystem works. And I can screen record it. If they've got an Apple phone, I can just airdrop it to them. And, I think at the end of the day, you're trying to get gear out of that technology to make your life easy and
as least friction as possible.
Yeah, and it's not just that, but, you got to impress. Like, I've noticed there are some clients that I sort of rock up to or do a shoot for, and then I pull out the the FX6 with my Mac box with the extra V-Log battery and everything else. They go, whoa, I know what I'm paying for. And if you put out a I don't know,
FX3, which has the same sensor, but it doesn't have a Mac box on it, doesn't have a big V mount, and it looks kind of like maybe a photo camera, but not quite. It's a bit small of a camera. What are we paying you for?
That's exactly right. You know what I mean? So I think that visual component, that client expectation that they have, you almost have to go that wow factor with them, because if you don't, it's almost to a point where it's like, yeah, what am I paying you for? You know what I mean? So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and we can watch YouTube and people say gear doesn't matter, and I can get the same shots with my FX3 or my A7S III or even a cheaper mirrorless camera. And look, I'm sure you can get great shots with that. But when you're working with companies that have big budgets, they expect big cameras, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you're able to put a matte box on it or a money maker on it, it shows the client this is what you're paying for, and it's professional, and you're going to get great looking footage. And then you show them the footage back on a small HD 7-inch monitor, which looks amazing, and they're like, wow, this is what I'm paying for, as opposed to a tiny little 3-inch screen, 100%. Which you're like, oh, is it in focus?
And you know what? It's totally 100% right, because I feel like if I am coming to a shoot and then show them all that gear, they trust me a lot more as well. And they know what I'm actually, they can see what I'm doing, you know what I mean? Where, yes, you can put a GoPro inside of this like a contraption thing and make it look fancy and all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, yeah, it's almost to a point where I mentioned in the last episode, that 60-40%, where 60 is visual and that 40%, yes, at the end of the day, that's what you're supplying the client. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame, because it would be nice just to have small cameras. And I do that sometimes. I go on client shoots and I have an FX6 in a bag, and I can take it out with my Cine saddle, or I can put it on an easy rig and I can look really impressive. But the shots that I need to get, I need a light camera to get different angles and do it really quickly.
Yep.
I'll even, like, if I'm filming something and I just need to get a high looking down shot, I can just hold the camera up and get it that way, as opposed to with my FX6, I'd have to get a ladder and climb up and then look down. And the FX6 doesn't have image stabilization as well, unless it's in the lens. So like my 7200 has IS or OIS, but all my other lenses don't. So I need to make sure that it's steady. Whereas if I put it on my A7S III or my A7R5, it's got great stabilization.
That's right. Yeah, 100%.
And it's small as well. And it gets the shot, and they're similar, if not the same sensors as well, shooting in S-Log3 as well. So
yeah.
My clients don't care. They don't care if I'm shooting S-Log3 unless they're an agency. And agencies do care about the footage. But if it's business to business, they just care that they look good, that it's in focus, and that it makes them money. Because at the end of the day, we create videos to make money for our clients.
That's right, 100%, man. I also have two RS4 Ronins. So one's actually set up for portrait and the other one's set up for vertical, the horizontal shooting. So I don't have to rebalance the camera every single time.
Very helpful.
Yeah. So I was just like, I had one, and then every single shoot that I had, sometimes I had like 3 shoots a week. So I have to rebalance this Ronin with my A7S III to be able to get vertical and horizontal shots.
That slows you down. There's friction.
Big time, And I think the price of the Ronin these days, it's just so reasonably priced that literally, one reasonable shoot, you pay for itself, you know what I mean? So, and then recently I've put one of those trackers on it as well. I don't know if you've seen it. So where basically, so you put this, I can't actually remember the name of it, but you actually USB plug into the actual Ronin, and then your client or your subject can lift up the hand, and basically the Ronin recognizes it, that's your tracking, and everywhere you can just literally put the camera on the tripod and the whole thing will just follow you. You know what I mean? Just fantastic. But yeah, look, there's different little things that you can add for small budget, essentially, that'll make your life much quicker and much more easier in the long term as well. Being a gearhead, it helps, because you sort of sit there, you research, and then you kind of go, yeah, I'll buy that, So yeah.
And to finish off today's episode, what is your favorite piece of gear?
Oh, that is.
And why?
Oh, I can't believe you asked me that question.
It's like picking your favorite child. I know.
Yeah, I love all of them. And from the drone perspective, I think the Inspire is probably the way to go.
Inspire 3?
Yeah, Inspire 3 is probably the way to go, because it feels like a tank when you're flying it. You know what I mean? You just feel powerful. And because the size of it and the dual controllers, and, I can literally focus on the flying, and then the operator can focus on the camera and the image. And it's just, a lot of people sort of turn their heads when they say the Inspire in the air, you know what I mean? Just fantastic.
Is it loud?
It is, yeah.
That might be why.
Yeah, that is actually, it does sound like a tank in the air, literally, you know what I mean? But yeah, the footage is fantastic out of it. It is a specific kind of job drone though. So, there's, like I mentioned, like sometimes the Mini 3 or Mavic 3 or Mavic 4 will actually achieve a lot more from a different perspectives of the actual flying and, capturing the images. But yeah, the Inspire is just like the Inspire 3 is just like boom. From a camera point of view, I think FX6 is probably one of the, like, it does look, you look like a pro when you're carrying that stuff, you know what I mean?
Is there any room for improvement with the FX6 in your opinion? What would you like to see in an FX6 Mark II?
Now you put me on the. Honestly, I think the like the gimbal thing. So if I strip it fully, having that camera on a gimbal and unable to sort of plug in any sort of microphones into it, it's a bit of a downer.
So maybe just at least one XLR or one 3.5 inch on the body as opposed to only in the handle.
That's right, yeah. Because I mean, look, the systems these days, like your Rode Go, they create some amazing sounds, yeah? Like you can actually create some really good sounds with it. It would be nice just to be able to put that Rode 3 in that Rode Go into that sort of 3.5mm jack on the FX6 and then just run with it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, even if it was just like a little adapter that once you take the handle off the FX6, there's a little like piece that obviously connects between the handle and the FX6. Even if they made some sort of adapter which had a XLR or a 3.5 just in it, and then you can put it on the body of the camera. Then hopefully, like I'm not a camera engineer or anything, but hopefully it still balances properly because that's the whole point that you're taking the whole handle off as well. That would be a good solution, Sony.
I know, yeah. But I think it's a lot of people actually use FX6 for FPV drones as well. So where they have a big cine lifter and they put on top of that, and they have to fully strip it. And then, like I understand, but, time, I think you can still put time cone in there so you can still sync and everything else. Yeah, look, I don't know. I seriously think it's one of my best cameras, non-gimbal camera.
Yeah, it's almost the perfect corporate camera. Yeah, there is room for improvement though. I would like to add 32-bit audio.
Yes.
That would be great.
Yes.
And there's some problems with the variable ND and polarizers with the FX6, but oddly enough, there wasn't a problem from what I hear with like the FS5 Mark II or whatever. Apparently there was no problem with polarizing colors and all that kind of stuff. They've solved it with the Burano apparently, but I don't have 44,000 Australian dollars to buy the Burano. So I'm kind of in a lower tier, I guess, with my video production. The video production that I do does not call for a Burano. It calls for something like an FX6, possibly an FX9, but I've heard that the FX9 is being discontinued and now we're getting into rumors and all that kind of stuff. Because for like the last 12 months, I've heard people saying, oh, the FX6 Mark II or FX3 Mark II has to be here very soon. Well, I don't think we're going to get an FX6 Mark II anytime soon because they've announced firmware for the FX6 for next year, 2026. We're currently in 2025. For those wondering. So a year away almost for firmware for this camera. So I don't anticipate an FX6 Mark II anytime soon, which is fine because I like my FX6. But also there are a few little things that I'd like to see improved. And I'm more interested to see what Sony's going to pull out because you've got other cameras coming out from Canon and Lumix that, so like Canon's got the C400 and the C80, which is quite interesting. And he's getting Sony shooters going, oh, okay. And oh, look at that lens. And oh, look at all that. And getting people wanting to switch systems. And switching systems is a big thing. As you would know, I know as well, because it's not just a camera body. It's lenses and accessories and all that kind of stuff. And all of my cameras, minus my drone, which is a DJI Air 2, for those wondering, they're all Sony. And all the accessories, all the lenses, they all work together. Batteries are different on my, obviously, FX6 to my FX30, which is this camera, my A7S III, which is that camera, and then Marty's other camera, A7R5 is there. This is all for the video people that are listening on audio. I'm sorry that you don't have a visual representation of what I'm talking about. But Sony, all the stuff just works together. It's great. But then if I wanted to think about, I want to get a Canon C400, well, that's an expense just for the camera and then the lenses and then all that stuff.
100%. And like I did the jump from that Canon component to the Sony component. And look, there is a couple of issues with Sony's as well. And
there always is. There's no perfect camera yet.
And like people say, I use Metabones, and I have. And
they fail.
They do work, but they don't most of the time, in a sense, with autofocuses and other things as well. And that's one of the reasons I go, you know what, I'm just going to bite the bullet, buy that $2,500 lens, and just, get rid of that one headache that I can, because of reliable equipment. But yeah, look, I think it's an ongoing thing. And I think constantly technology is evolving and constantly something else better comes out. So the way I've got all my equipment at the moment, I'm pretty happy with it. You know what I mean? And my FX6 does the job. My A7S3 does the job. And until they start breaking, I'm kind of maybe, I'm hoping a A7 V might come out soon. There was rumors or something, wasn't it?
I think from currently we are in June 2025. From the rumors that I'm hearing, there are 2 or 3 new cameras that are going to be announced in the next 3 to 4 months from Sony. So Sony's been a little bit quiet with anything exciting coming out camera-wise. So it will be interesting to see if it's an A7 V, if it's a FX3 Mark II, or something new that we haven't even heard of before. Kind of like what they did with the FX2, but not, because all they really did was, I haven't paid too much attention to it. They added a EVF and I don't know. It's not the camera that I'm looking for.
No, same. I think when I saw FX2, I was like, oh yeah, look into it. No, thanks. So it's they have to make some significant changes to camera systems for me to sort of jump onto that bandwagon of a new system. But at the moment, what I'm shooting with, I love it. I've got my FX6 for interviews. I've got my A7 III for gimbal work, and essentially B cam as well. And like my A7 IV is a C cam. And it's photography. So it sort of does the job. And I think that covers pretty much a very wide, spectrum of work.
Yeah, if you turn up onto a job and a client changes scope, they wouldn't do that, but scope changes for whatever reason. I think the gear that you have, it sounds like it ticks all the boxes and will cover pretty much most things that a client could throw at you. Because I was on a shoot the other day and I was booked as a videographer, and they saw my mirrorless cameras that are photo cameras, and they asked, can you just take a few shots of this? And I was like, there was an awkward pause. And then, that's it.
Take out the phone.
Well, there was a few people a part of this team, and my main contact, they said, I can just take it on iPhone. And I was like, in my head, I was thinking, no, like good client experience. It doesn't cost me much time or anything. I'll do it. And I did do it. But there was that slight awkward pause of, I was hired for video and I'm not a photographer this shoot. Do I charge them more? No. It's one of those awkward things.
And that's the thing, it's one I've noticed the same thing. It's like sometimes if you say no, what are they going to think? And would they employ you again?
Probably not. And they won't recommend you.
There's like, you try not to put too much of a brick wall.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If that makes sense. I've, every time a client comes to me and they go, can you do video and photo together? I said, yes, I can. But keep in mind, I will not document one thing because I'm doing another. You know what I mean? So, if I'm doing a shoot constantly on the video, and they want a photo of something, I said, I will get that video, but you won't get a photo, and vice versa.
Can we just take stills from the video?
Yeah, I had a few of those.
We can. Well, we can.
Screenshot it.
Yeah, I've done that recently with a few projects, or I've had some requests from a client to get footage or get photos from footage that I took a while ago. And I can take screen grabs from the footage, and depending on what it is, it can look quite nice if it hasn't got a lot of motion blur. But ideally, if a client wants photo and video, it's always great for them to have a photographer and a videographer.
And look, what, you get quality much better out of actual film camera, as in photography camera, rather than actual video. I mean, as you know, the A7S3 has only got a 12 megapixel sensor, right? Where A7 IV, it's got almost 50. You know what I mean? Whatever it is.
I think it's like
now.
4, is it 40
I don't-
something
yeah,
or
I
30
got
something?
four-
I can't
I-
remember.
yeah,
I
I
used to
can't
have an A7 IV and then I've got the A7R V, which is 61 megapixels,
Oh, wow. Okay.
which is completely too much for
Yeah,
what I need.
agree.
But then I have been looking at the A1 II, and that's 50 megapixels. But good luck getting one. I was looking last night, and like it's still on back order, so I'm not sure what the deal is with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sony's flagship camera, can't get it.
Yeah, I was actually considering getting A1, and then kind of looked at the price, and then I
The
kind of
Mark II or the
yeah,
original?
Mark II, no,
Yeah,
Mark
okay.
II, and then I kind of looked at the price, and then in return on investment as well. It's just like
It's expensive.
It is expensive, So maybe one day, and but
Yeah,
so
I
far,
was
so good.
looking at just hiring it out, like a long-term 6-month hire, just so I can have the experience of shooting with the flagship. And I've applied for it, and I think I paid for the initial I don't know, admin side of things, like to get the application done. And I haven't heard anything back from them because they said, oh yeah, this is going to be a special order. It should come in February, March or so. We're now in June and I haven't heard anything. And then, as I said, like last night I was online just looking up to see how much it is and if anyone's got to buy now. And I think there was one that said that you could buy it now, but I wasn't too
stock.
confident about that because all the other places were saying awaiting stock
Yeah.
and contact us for availability. And even Sony's website said next batch August 2025. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, yeah, like if you're paying like over 10K, Aussie dollars for a camera, you kind of really got to make sure that it's not just a point and shoot camera. Kind of, you actually want something that's reasonable.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Marty, for coming on today and telling us all about your camera gear.
Thank you very much, sir.